Hi there, I'm Dr. Nadia, founder of the Doing Agency and host of the Sales Culture Unfiltered podcast. And I am so excited for our guest today. Today, we get to have a conversation with Tina Sue, who is the founder of Business Wealth Advisory and is the creator of the Freedom Mastery Experience. After building and selling her own company and helping lead a $30 million advisory firm, she now helps growth minded entrepreneurs redesign profitable businesses into scalable wealth building assets. Unlike traditional coaches who focus on revenue or tactics alone, Tina starts by defining what true freedom looks like. Then she aligns leadership, profitability, enterprise value, and risk strategy to support it. Her work ensures success builds lasting wealth and personal freedom, not burnout. She is also the host of Women Choosing Growth, which champions the belief that we are better together. This is such a rich conversation, and it is one that you don't want to miss. Tune in. Welcome to Sales Culture Unfiltered, the podcast where we get real about what actually makes or breaks high-performing sales teams. I'm your host, Dr. Nadia Y. Brown, a sales culture and communication architect, and I work with sales leaders to engineer high-impact teams that hit their numbers without burning out or breaking down. On this show, we dive into unfiltered conversations with sales leaders, industry experts, and high-performing teams about what it really takes to drive revenue, retain talent, and build a winning sales culture. If you're tired of surface-level advice and want the strategies, challenges, and hard-won wins that actually matter, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Hi, Tina Sue. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. So glad to be here.
Oh my goodness, I am so excited for this conversation. So we are just going to dive right in because I have tons of questions. And where I want to start is one of the things that you shared actually in your bio was that, all your accolades, right? You built a company, you sold a company, you led a $30 million advisory firm, and now you're working with entrepreneurs to turn profitable businesses into real wealth building assets. We're going to come back to that because I love that. But what I wanted to start our conversation with is one of the things that you mentioned was there was a moment when you almost sold your business just to get relief. So take us back to that moment. What was going on? And ultimately, what's prevented you from taking that step in that moment?
Oh my gosh, that is one of those moments that you look back on and you go, "Oh, okay, this was meant to be." Even though at the moment, I felt my world was just in turmoil. It was actually. It was
Hmm.
about. So I started my business to be a good mom because I just wanted to be there for my kids, and so knowing what my purpose was of why I started the business about I think it was about 6 years in, winning awards, revenues growing, teams growing, getting, having great culture, all of the things. So picture perfect success, except
Hmm.
for I was working weekends. I was getting home just in time for bedtime. I missed a Christmas morning. I had to leave to go. Someone had called in, one of my staff called in sick, so I had to
Yes.
go. And so these things were like compounding in the background, and it was like that big snowball of you're ignoring it because I've got awards over here and things P&L is looking good, and the snowball just got so big that I was like I can't do this anymore. I'm not doing my family any service. I was stressed out. I was burnt out basically. So I thought, well, fine, I'll go back to corporate America and I'll just, be that kind of person and that kind of mom and take vacations to go to the
Yes.
the school Christmas whatever parade. Um, and so put my business up for sale, went through that whole process, learned due diligence. I'd never been through that before and had a buyer and they backed out at 9 p.m. the night before we were supposed to sign.
Ouch.
I was already mentally checked out, so I was on to the next thing. I wasn't paying attention to my business. I'm like, yeah, yeah, it's not mine. Um,
This is not
a
your
lot of
problem.
lessons. Yeah, exactly. It's gonna be someone else's problem. Um, a lot of lessons learned in that moment. One, deal is never done until the money's in your bank. People
Correct.
say until the deal is signed, but like, let's just be real. It's not until the money is in your bank.
So true.
Um, and that was one of those moments where I had to decide, was this supposed to happen? And I'm supposed to figure out how to keep my business going and be have the flexibility and the freedom and the money I wanted to make, or should I go find another buyer? I
Wow.
chose the second one. I
Mm,
mean, I chose the first one. I chose, it was just exhausting.
yeah.
Um, it's kind of like if you've ever tried to sell a house and just nobody likes it. Like, oh, I don't like this and I don't like that. Like that's what that whole process of even finding the first buyer was. And I
Yeah.
just didn't have, I had less energy for that than I did of like, there's got to be a way that I
Hmm.
can have time freedom. So my kids were little, they were like 10, maybe less than 10. Um, Time freedom and make the money that I deserve for the efforts and the business that I'm building and provide a great place for all of my employees and provide a great service. I mean, people do it. I just didn't know how.
Right. Right.
So that decision was like, I need to figure this out.
Yes. Yes. So first, a lot of times, especially as women, we don't like to admit when we've hit a wall. What made you be willing to talk about it and deal with it, even though we're going to come back to this plan that didn't quite work out? But what made you say like enough is enough, something needs to change?
Of when I first put my business for sale,
Hmm.
is that it was when it was really that Christmas morning was
Hmm.
the straw that, broke the camel's back because I knew why I started. I had no business, nobody in my family. So I had no role models at all at that point. And the only reason I started a business was so the flexibility to be there for my kids. And so when I realized again that it was just like compounding over here and I was ignoring it, um, that Christmas morning was kind of
Yeah, that
the
one's hard.
that's what, like, no, it was a Saturday even. So like
All the
all the
things, like
things of
why
like
is this a
just
thing right now?
exactly. So that was when it was like, I want to be a certain kind of mom, and I can't do it with this business that I have the way that it is. So that
Hmm.
was finally, I think everyone's breaking point is something different. That's what it was for me.
Got it. So as you were rebuilding, because so deal falls through, you're like, oh crap, this is still my baby. What do I do now? So
Yeah.
as you're rebuilding and you're looking at your team, like how did you decide on your team? Like, what did that look like as you're evaluating who's here? How are we going to move forward? Like, how did you make those decisions around what systems or processes were problematic, what people were problematic? Like, what did that process look like?
Oh, what a great question. I'm not sure we have enough time to dive fully in. Um, One of the very first things I had to do is have a little come to Jesus with myself and figure out like how come it wasn't like this for the first 6, 7 years or whatever that time frame was.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't have a big ego naturally, but because I didn't have that support in those first few years, I didn't have any knowledge. So I was trying to figure this, I was faking it till I was
Right.
making it. So one of the things I did at that moment, that period, that short period of time when I'm like, I have to figure this out, I put my ego away and started asking people who have built successful businesses. I was part of a
Right.
franchise, so there was plenty of people I could have asked those previous years, but I didn't want people to know that I didn't know what I was doing. So
Hmm.
once I put that in the closet and said, I am going to open myself up to other people's opinions,
Yeah.
that's when it really transformed and I took a deep look at myself. Someone asked me this great question. I ask it to clients all the time. If you closed your doors today but opened tomorrow with the same people that you have on your team today, would you hire them tomorrow?
That's an excellent question.
And my face went, oh, no, I wouldn't.
Mm,
And I ask this to my clients, and usually there's someone or multiple people that you wouldn't rehire. So why are they still there?
yes, yes,
And the people you cannot grow, you can't achieve that vision that I wanted, that most entrepreneurs want, with the wrong people on your bus.
you
So
cannot.
that was the first thing that I did.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. Let's stay there because one of the things you also talk about in your work is strengthening leadership. So as you're going through this rebuilding process, I'm sure there were some leadership muscles being flexed. Like, what did that look like as part of your process in evaluating your own leadership style and what may have needed to change?
That's interesting because I did some things really right in the be in that first phase, if you will, and I
Mhm.
did some things really that I changed and did not continue to do. I parent the same way that I lead. I think parenting is leading. So I lead by example. I treat everyone with respect. I won't expect anyone to do something that I wouldn't do, which is all great. And I recommend all of those things. But I also was besties with my staff. Do
Yeah.
not recommend that. It worked really, really well when I was growing and like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I would love for you to come on this journey and like, let's build this thing together.
Hmm.
Cool for phase one. But when we got to phase two, which is where, I needed this next level of expertise, they were still at bestie level and not at own your job level and do, hit your
Hmm.
KPIs and things like that. So the company grew. I wanted to grow with that next level, but that staff was still like, no, we're besties and we're gonna go out on Friday night. Like,
You're like, no,
and
your
and
work
that
still.
yeah, and it's really hard to discipline someone who is, like literally one of my staff watched my kids while we were on one of the award trips that we won. So like that's how close we were. They stayed at my house with my little kids for a week.
Yeah.
Don't recommend that.
That makes
So what
those difficult conversations even more difficult.
it so did. And so I couldn't lead and hold people accountable because our relationship wasn't of that level.
Mm,
Now, I don't think like my style is not leadership here and I'm here. I say the same thing to my kids. I don't have to anymore. They're old and wonderful. But I used to say like don't make me be the leader. Don't make me be your boss. I've given you direction. I make it very clear on what is expected of you. You now own that and don't go outside that box
yeah,
because then I have to have conversations that neither one of us really want to have. I say the
right.
same thing to my kids. Don't make me be
Right.
the mom. Like, like you know what you need to do. Please go do it so that we can
Go
all
do
just live happy. So I had to change that in me.
it.
And well, I had to change staff, right? I had to get people who didn't have that experience with me in the first phase. And then always was hiring to that next level, not where I needed them now, but someone with the skills and the mindset to get a year from now's growth, 2 years from now's growth. And that was huge.
I love that. One of the things that I see often in my work is that a lot of times founders are reluctant to hire, or they sometimes make what they feel are the easier hires, but not always the most prudent hires, even in terms of roles. Like, how do you work through that process of determining even like what's the next hire? Because you mentioned like even hiring for that next level, which is one thing that you have to really think about, like, really think about where you want to go. But then also like determining which seat on the bus, if you will, do we fill next? Like, what does that process look like for you and or your clients?
Yes, that's a great question. I could do a whole podcast on how I did it wrong the first time because I was cheap and hired cheap people because I thought, well, and I did a lot of the work, right? A lot of us entrepreneurs are like, well, if I do the thing, I don't have to pay
Mhm.
someone, and then basically I take home that profit that I would have paid someone else. Don't do that. Um,
Don't do it.
So I you just don't do that. So when I'm working with clients, there's a couple of different things we look at. One, what is the things, and you've probably heard this, like what are the things that you don't like doing?
Hmm.
Because even though maybe it's an expensive thing that would cost you an expert to do. But if you don't like doing it, you're not going to do it as well. You're not going to do it timely, like, and it's costing you more to keep that on your plate than to go hire someone.
Yes.
The other thing I hear often is that a new person, a new staff person, whether, we're adding someone new or we're hiring someone with a different level and i.e. different salary level,
Hmm.
they think of it as, well, that person costs X, $100,000 a year. That is not how we look at any staff. We do the backwards math, literally have a calculator called backwards math that says, what does that employee need to bring to the business in revenue or free up time so someone else can bring in revenue and profit in order to cover that $100,000. So no one should ever cost a company in labor that isn't
Hmm.
producing something to provide dollars at the bottom, which is the profit. So once we determine that, that is how we know exactly what person is the next person on the bus.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
You mentioned when I love your backwards calculator. I'm like, ooh, it's so good.
I love it. I'll share it. I can actually share it with
I
you.
love
Yeah.
that. But you mentioned, measuring revenue and talking about revenue. So most founders measure their success by revenue. When did you realize that that was the wrong measurement to go by?
Honestly, it was probably early on because I was that first business was a franchise. And so that was our method of like, hey, where are you at? We'd go to a conference and that would be the number. But I was comparing, I went to this, I started at the same time as someone in LA. I was in
Hmm.
Green Bay, Wisconsin, and someone in, all these other different communities. Well, they're billing more and they pay more for their staff. So I constantly, early on, felt like, well, how come I don't have that revenue? But then I joined a performance group and saw we all shared our financials, which was a huge
Hmm.
eye opener. It's called accountability to like all of your numbers. Um, my revenue was almost lowest, but I had the highest profit. And so
Yes.
that's when the light bulb went on. I'm like, okay, I'm doing something different. Even though their revenue
Mhm.
was 1.5 times what mine was, the profit is what you take home. And that's really the success of a business.
Part that you're keeping. I know, I hear that all the time about, top line revenue, blah, 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 blah. And then you get behind the scenes and you're like, this is terrible.
Yeah, I
Not
made a
to
$2 million
poo-poo
dollar.
on your work and your revenue, but where did all the money go?
And honestly, this, the more revenue that someone has, and if they're benchmarking themselves on that, they think the more easy it is for them to spend. So like, oh, I'll go hire that next person without doing backwards math, without, I'll go buy the new thing, I'll buy the fancier whatever, new marketing, whatever it is, because they think like, oh, I'm making more than I did last year.
Yep.
But you're shrinking your bottom line, which is where, like, that's why we're in business. I mean, let's be
Yep.
real. We're in
That's
business to
real.
make impact and money.
Hmm. It's huge. And it's funny because, when you get caught in that particular cycle, that what I found is that a lot of people then think they can just sell their way out of a bad
Mm.
cycle or a downturn. Like, oh, we just have to just keep selling more. And that becomes problematic in and of itself. Like, it is a vicious cycle. So if you're not there, don't go there. And if you are, stop it.
Yeah. I mean, and then you have to appeal so many things like, is your pricing right? Is your delivery right? Again, on the team, is it being delivered right? It's like, it's not how much you sell for, it's what you get out of that.
Yeah. I think that because like you mentioned, when you look at revenue there, and you even talk about your backwards calculator, I feel that that is where a lot of us can get into trouble when we don't take the time to really look at all the numbers. And like you said, sometimes, especially when you're first starting out, you're like, well, I can do that. But we don't add ourselves as an actual line item that someone needs to be paid. So we
Mhm.
never take that into account and it gets us stuck. Like you said, our pricing is usually off. And when we're ready to grow, then we're like, I don't understand why this isn't working. because we
Yeah.
did take the time. So I love it. I have my calculator out all the time and spreadsheets and calculations. Like I need to understand this because it needs to make sense.
The math makes sense. And here's the thing, so many entrepreneurs, like you probably would agree to this with the people you work with, same as me. Oh, I don't do finances. It's cool. You don't need to know math. It's
Yes.
actually more of a story than anything. So have a bookkeeper do the math,
Mm-hmm.
which the system does the math. No one actually needs to do the math, but it's a story then of all of these things, your pricing, your, cost of goods and how you're selling and the marketing. And so it's really, if you look at the numbers differently, which is the
Yeah,
core of everything your business runs around, don't look at it as math. It's a
exactly.
storybook.
Even though we like calculators.
Yeah. You
So
and I like spreadsheets,
we
but
do.
not everyone
Everyone else
does.
is like, what is wrong with you too?
Yeah. That is
So
true.
speaking of profit, one thing I really wanted to chat with you about today was what's the difference
Mhm.
between a profitable business and a wealth building business? And why does it matter for the people inside it?
Oh, man, that's a great question. So, profit is great and it will supply a lifestyle. You're
Yes.
already laughing. But your profit then is like another mini business, right? Like, how do you bring that into your household and multiply that again?
Mm,
So, there's nothing wrong with having a lifestyle business that's maybe just, supplying you with some fun. But we want to build enterprise value in a business. We want it so that you have something to sell someday. So that's the first thing we're looking at in a profitable business because profit is what your business gets valued on
yes.
when, just like me, someone comes and asks you, not the not the first time when it didn't sell, but the second time when someone just came and like, "Hey, I would like to buy your business." You have to be ready for that. You
Mm-hmm.
have to have good financials for that, a strong profit because that's what it's calculated. Your value is calculated on your profit. But even before you're thinking about selling, that money that you're bringing in or taking home out of your business, how are we making that money work for us? How are we investing that? Are we reinvesting into other things outside of that company? Are
Mm-hmm.
we reinvesting? This is one of the things I work with clients a lot on because I've seen it's either we put all of our profits back into the company and just keep growing, and then we're not taking anything home to build our retirement, to build our next stage of life, or people are taking everything home and living a grandiose life, but then their business is like stalling and slowly growing. There is a happy medium. There's no right or wrong, but we actually have to look at that plan and base it on what kind of lifestyle do you want? What does your retirement or your next stage of life need to look at? And guess what? There's math. There,
All right.
there's, there's a plan. It's a strategy of make that money work for you and
Yes.
think about generational wealth. Like and we might get to this, but a big thing of what I do with clients is making sure that you're also protected so that if you do have all of this set up and you're bringing money home and putting it in retirement and investments and whatever that looks like for you, but do you have that established with a plan for if you get hit by a bus
Mm-hmm.
and your family is then set and your next generation is set? Like there's so many creative things, which I'm not the expert in. I'm not a estate planner or a financial advisor, but I work with them and I see the magic that they do to set up
Yeah.
your grandchildren. Like tax saving, like let's talk about tax, right? Like make
Yes.
that money work for you and
Thank you.
in a way that you're not putting a lot of it to the government if you don't have to. So
Right.
that's the difference between profitable and building real true wealth.
I love that. Let's talk because you said some scary words for a lot of people, financials and taxes. So, but one of the things that I really love about the work that you do is you don't start there. I know we talk about our spreadsheets and our love for calculators, but you start with really what does freedom feel like? What does that look like? Like, walk us through that particular process because, as you know, especially women, I don't know why, but when we start talking about money, and financials and taxes and all the things, it does give a lot of people the heebie-jeebies. And then we start with our ostrich leadership. Let's stick my head in the sand. I won't deal with this right now. And that is not setting us up for wealth building, legacy, none of that. We all know that. So, how do you help your clients through that process to really get them on board with what you help them create?
Yeah, honestly, that is one of the things that makes what we do different from, there's a lot of business coaches that are wonderful, but I don't want to focus on business growth until I know what it is that we're building and what it means to you individually. So we spend a couple months on true vision because we don't
Mhm.
have to keep growing. We talked a lot about, revenue and profits growing and all that, but it's okay if your goal is 1.5 million in revenue and $350,000 every year to take home to your family. And we've got a plan to make that work for you. And you're working 30 hours. Cool. If that is your goal, that's how we're gonna then go build the business. So we don't have to like keep chasing the next dollar or
Yeah.
the revenue or profit if that doesn't fit your lifestyle. And there's phases of lifestyle. So we go through that. Like
Mhm.
what you might have little kids now and then they're going to be off in college and you're going to have more time. Like Ryan, my kids are even out of college now. So I can
And I'm
work
the one with the
Saturday.
10-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. Your life is totally different than mine. So I spend time with my clients to map that out. Like what
Mhm.
and it's ideal, right? It's like ideal. Put it up on there on the wall. What would you love? What's success to you? Do you want to travel? Is that in the United States? Is that across the, how many times a year? We do all of that, have that pretty solid. It's not that it can't change, but like now we see what's possible. And
Yeah.
then we go to the business and say, cool. And we look at everything, sales, marketing, leadership, financials, all the things. And we make sure that that business plan is aligned or has a plan to get aligned with what that vision is. And then the third phase, once we have that all rocking and rolling, then we make sure everything is protected, like we talked about.
Oh my gosh. So for me, because you hear it and I'm sure you see it too, there's that push of more, 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 grow, 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 focus always on the new. And that
Mhm.
sounds exhausting. So the fact that you even start with giving your clients permission
Yep.
to set whatever their goal is, and that's okay, and they're not wrong for that, that feels like true freedom right there. Like, yes, I'm
It,
free.
it is.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, exactly. Define your freedom is what we do. And then so many people, and I did the same, and most of our clients do this. They like, hey, I want to build a business for freedom. And then they build the business and then they take over whatever profits are left over. They take over whatever time is left over and then they go put it over here in their family and
Mhm.
their personal life. What we do is opposite. We build the personal life box and then we put the business inside it instead of the other way around, instead of like getting leftovers over here. So we're putting bumpers on it or so when the business does go and ask too much of you, it's like, well, what was our bumpers on this? Like what was our not going to give? How far can we stretch when because life happens,
It does.
but our core focus is always like, what does that ideal life look like? Time and money.
Yes. So good. One thing you mentioned before was even thinking about selling the business
Mhm.
or even having an exit strategy. And I feel like a lot of us fall into that trap of I haven't thought that far ahead. What are the ways that I know you have the freedom and you're thinking there, but even in a broader context, like really helping people to figure that piece out or having that conversation? Because I feel like it might be a little jarring for some people to be like, well, wait, you want me to think about selling or having a plan? Like, I don't know. I hear it more now, but I remember some years like there was no off ramp. We were just out here just doing all the things like we were going to be here forever or that life will always look the same, right? And so, even in that context, like in your community or through your podcast, when you're having those conversations, like how do you really help people wrap their brains around having an exit and preparing for that exit?
Yeah, there's a couple different things, right? I mean, we could go to the dark side and say, think about everyone that you know that had something happen to them that they weren't expecting. Because a lot of businesses just close their doors when it could be just something like I was talking to someone the other day, they fell off a ladder in their backyard and were laid up for 9 months. If your
Wow.
business Like it's some, it's things like that. Like life is going
Mhm.
to happen. It's not like you can plan for any of that. Um, and so what would your business do if you were laid up for 9 months? What happens if something happened to one of your children or your spouse? Like those are the things where I don't necessarily want to start there with people of thinking of the, divorce, death, disability, like there's five
Right.
Ds. But we do talk about it because life does happen. So let's have a plan so that if life happens, we still are protecting and you don't lose everything. But you really should be thinking about your exit from day one because you're going to build your business totally different. Just
I,
like me, when I did finally, and you think of all the people you know in entrepreneurship that weren't looking to sell, but someone wanted your business strategically and they offer a good price for it. Like,
hmm
don't you want to be ready and don't you want to have the not leave money on the table because you built your business differently to
Yeah.
get the highest dollar? I think one of the biggest misconceptions for most entrepreneurs is when it comes to value, that in order to get more money for your business from where you're at today, that you need to either increase revenue or profits. That is not true. And I can
Mm-hmm.
show time and time again where a business could stay exactly the same on profit, because that's how the business is calculated in its value, but change a couple things in there, like reduce owner dependency, put systems and processes in place, have people running those departments instead of you as the
Yes.
owner, and you're still making the same profit, but you just quadrupled your value because a business is worth more. It's not just a financial calculation. It's based on these things like how involved is the owner? Where are most of the customer sales? If you have one, I looked at a business yesterday that's for sale, and over half of their revenue was from one client. And I laughed and closed and said no thanks.
Oh,
Like
that's
you,
a massive risk.
it's a huge risk. And so no one is going to pay a premium dollar for that business because of that risk. But over time, you could change that, the ratio of your
Yep.
customer concentration. So there's
Mhm.
actually 50 factors that we go through in our training with clients of 50 factors that aren't financial that can affect your value. And so then we focus on which ones need the most improvement. And it's not about just bringing in more sales or changing pricing to like have more profit. It's all about those non-financial things that build a business. And so why not be ready for either the sad D's or the good offer that someone's like, "Man, I love what you've built and it would work perfectly with my company. What can I pay you for it?"
Right.
It's a better place to be.
So good. Oh my gosh. That's all like a whole separate episode. But yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for that because you're right. Like there's so many pieces that a lot of times we just think bottom line, profit, revenue, done. And you're right, that's not it. I know for me, especially from a sales perspective, like when you said that so much of the revenue came from the one, I was like, ooh, like 'cause that is just so terrifying. And then again, owner dependency, which I think a lot of times is difficult. Like, how do you work yourself out? Like, I've even been in that space of asking that question, like, how do I create this where I'm not there doing all the things all the time, which sometimes it can be difficult. So, one of the questions I want to ask you, because I see this a lot in my work, especially when it comes to sales and helping founders and entrepreneurs move out of being the rainmaker in their companies and they're like fighting me tooth and nail because it's one of the things that they're actually good at or they enjoy. And it's like, well, why would I stop? What advice do you have for those folks when they're fighting and they're like, no, 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 I need to keep this. I no one can sell this like I can. It's like that is true. And there may be
Yeah.
someone that can actually do it better, but I need you to move out of the way. Like,
Yeah.
so from a wealth building perspective, like what would you say for those folks?
That is so funny. That's cool. And I would say for one, we don't have to pull them out of that, right? Like you don't have to like automatically stop doing the thing that you love. But when we go back to that conversation of like, oh, we have to hire someone and a sales rep is probably $100,000 for easy math. We not only are going to have that person sell in addition to you, owner.
Mhm.
So now you're increasing your sales. We're building the value. See where this value comes in, where
Yes.
it's not on your P&L. Value is not on your P&L. But now you are separating yourself. Maybe it's 50-50 at the end of the year. You sold 50, this other person sold 50. The risk is less because it used to be 95 you, right? So we do that again, and now you're at 25% of the sales. Or you do a different role in the sales. Maybe it's not
Hmm.
the lead generation, which is where the risk comes in. Maybe you are the one having the conversations and closing for a while,
Yep.
right? It doesn't have to change overnight, but like, let's figure out what part do you love? Or just go have other people do it and go start another business over here with all your profits that you can go sell. You can go sell something else.
But there are options.
There's so many options. You want to sell? Go start another business on the side while this one's running without you. Invaluable. But in all seriousness, it's like just like let's build a plan to say, cool, you don't have to stop tomorrow.
Correct.
What part of the process do you love the most? Where can we hire other qualified people to help build the business? Yada yada yada. Because what you just said and what owners say is like, oh, well, no one can sell like I can. Then why in the world would anyone ever buy your business? You're the only one that can sell this thing.
Hmm.
Zero people are interested in buying it.
There is no off ramp.
There is no off ramp. This is you. And then when you die, you close the doors. Like, does that sound with what you're working towards?
No,
Probably not.
that's not
Yeah.
legacy. When you talked about legacy, that is not it. Yeah.
Yeah. I do say those things to my clients too. So when you die, you're cool just closing the doors, right?
You're just done. We're
Because your
just
kids
that's it.
can't sell for you either because you're the only one who can sell this widget. Like,
Sometimes
let's
you have to
revisit.
have those tough conversations though. Like, come on, work with me here.
Yep,
One thing
exactly.
I want to circle back on is because we started here, you were in this space of wanting to sell the business just for the
Mhm.
sake of relief. That fell apart. Now you're back in it and now you're rebuilding. Now that when you got on the other side of that and you looked at especially your family, because I know family was a big piece of it, and I agree, like I'm the same. Like that was definitely an eye-opener. Becoming a parent really was like, whew, was an experience, right? And how did that shift change or not change? How did that shift impact your family once you were on the other side of rebuilding and you were no longer missing Christmas?
Yeah, thankfully my kids were young enough that they knew I left on that Christmas, but they had their dad, so it wasn't as traumatic for them as it was for me. So
Thank
thankfully
God.
they were young enough. But they even through that time, I remember my son saying, like, who's going to be here tomorrow? Is it you or dad? Because I was on the mindset that like, well, they just need one of us, right? They didn't need
Hmm.
both. And so like they did notice little things, but on the flip side of that, they also noticed that then I was there more. So it wasn't a traumatic, like, oh, she was never here and now she's here all the time, because it did take years to build that up, to
Yeah.
get the right leadership team in there and then the right systems. That took a few years to really see that freedom for me. But then I was going to the gym in the afternoons. Like I was doing other things. And
Yeah.
then that business was rocking and rolling. And then that's when I did start multiple other businesses. So I was flying to Florida once a week for a business down there from Wisconsin. And um, so I was still busy. I
Mm.
just had that flexibility that if the kids needed me or we wanted to go on a vacation, I could. So I honored myself if I get bored easy. So the idea of like not having something to like manage throughout the day
Right.
was like, what am I supposed to do now? That's when I realized, oh, you go and you build other things, which is where my brain is happiest, is like building and growing new things. Um,
Agreed.
yeah. So it was a slower transition. It wasn't
Mhm.
overnight, but then I did have that freedom and was able to, I started taking them on more vacations and explore the world for them. Like as a kid, I never even flew in an airplane until 23 years old. So I wanted different experiences for my kids. Like,
Same.
you got
Yeah.
to see other pieces of the world. So,
Yes.
yeah. So I don't know if they even noticed that, that was, I'm sure they know it's because of the flexibility that I had. Um, but yeah.
And I think, sometimes we feel like sometimes we can feel like it's all or nothing. I think especially as a mom. But like you said, we still have to honor ourselves. And I think that was a good piece to bring out. It's just like you have the kiddos. Thankfully, it wasn't a traumatic experience, but you also recognize that if I don't change this now, it could lead to something different in the future. And I also wanted to call out how you mentioned that it took years to make that shift. And I think sometimes we get impatient, at least I do. And, sometimes we want to make these changes immediately, like you're talking about systems and team and finding the right people and make it, and you have to be strategic sometimes, even when replacing people and positions and all the things, right? Like it's just not you just wait bull in a china shop and just do. I mean, you could do that, but I don't recommend it, right? So I really
Yeah.
like that you talk about that because I think that one, again, going back to permission, is not all or nothing or either or. And a lot of times we can get stuck in that. It's
Mhm.
let's look at how can everyone be served. And in this case, we're looking at, like not only you, but your family, your team, like everyone, and taking the time to really do it well
Mhm.
so that you don't have to go back and do that again. Like we don't need to go through this lesson again. So I think all of that is honorable. And like you said, there are those of us, I think I probably fall in that category. Like I need to do something. So okay,
Yeah.
you're done with this. Like go start another project. Like it doesn't have to end there. Or even when you think about exit, I feel like a lot of times we hear exit and we're like, that's it. Now what am I supposed to do? Go knit? Well, you could if that's your thing. Or
I
like you
can't sit on the beach that whole time. Like, well, fine, then get a laptop on the beach and build another business or
exactly.
do charity or whatever, write a book, something.
Yes, absolutely. So I love that. I love that you mentioned that. So one of the things that you do is you champion the idea that women are better together. And I
So
feel like when you look at the world today and there's so much competition and there is an abundance of a scarcity mindset, how do you frame that or really help people to buy into this? We're better together and mitigate all of those things.
for when I've seen it, a big difference, and not to be negative towards men, but in a room full of men and a room full of women, most of the rooms of women or collectives or just, wine parties, um, women do most women, if it's natural to us, want to help other people. It's
Agreed.
motherly instinct to like want to help. So when we put our ego aside, just like I had to in the first phase, and really say, oh, okay, you're also a coach to female entrepreneurs. So some people will say, oh, well, we do the same thing, and I can't tell you all of the things that I do because then you'll go and copy them. If that person does that, they have their own thing to deal with. But
Agreed.
no one can do what you do the way that you do it because they haven't lived your experiences.
Hmm.
The experience is not the same. Even if three people had the same process to follow, it's going to be different. So I'm of the mindset and share that, like, we don't have to worry about competition. Like, if you're providing value and you're doing it from the heart and you're doing it with good intention, like, then you're going to be successful. And if we can say, how do you, I mean, just like here, right? How do we work together to spread our message to more people together? Like that just makes more sense. If you really are focused on impact and changing people's lives, why would you want to go alone?
1,000%. Oh my gosh, yes. This is hard enough. You don't need to do it by yourself.
No, it's the one to many. Like, do you want to have, 10 sales calls in a week, or do you want to have one call with 10 people on that one call?
Yes.
It's the same kind of concept. How do
Mhm.
we work together to reach the masses and help elevate, especially women entrepreneurs, because we have less resources
Hmm.
and we have our own mindset that we have to like, break free from of all of the things that we're working on of mindset of, deserving and financial mindset and all of the things. Like, why can't we work together to do that?
I
We can.
agree. I love that. So, as we prepare to wrap up, what's one piece of advice that you haven't shared yet that you would share with our listeners right now that are in that space of something needs to change because I want to go from profitable to wealth building.
Mm, I feel like the whole process, and it starts with, uh, can I know you said I can't already share something that I wanted to share, but the answer truly is to shut off all the noise
Mm,
and really, if you're a journaler or like even audio, I'm more audio than writing. Like just start painting that picture. What would the dream life be for you?
hmm
What does that look like? Time, money, where are you at? Because once you can see that, then the rest of this stuff becomes so much clearer. What do you need to do with your business? What do you need to do with your family or your love life or all the other things? Just start to get a little bit more clear. If you can really like, what do I want out of life for myself? Be selfish. Paint that
I love
picture
it.
and then make a little plan of how all of the other little pieces can fall into that place.
Yes, be selfish.
Be selfish.
Please and thank you. I love it. Thank you for joining me today, Tina. Before we go, though, there are so many gems, and I know that there's so much more that listeners can get by just being in your orbit. So
Yes.
please let us know. Tell us how can we stay connected. If there's a resource you want people to grab, like give us all the details, and then we'll make sure that it's also in the show notes.
Yes, I so Business Wealth Advisory. So all the social and everything is businesswealthadvisory.com. I also have my personal brand website, which is Tina-Sue. That's more of my podcast and in angel investing. But the freebie that people love and say is mind-blowing and game-changing is a uh, time and financial freedom audit. And I can give you the link. And it's a self audit where you're rating yourself
Mhm.
and it's questions that you don't normally ask yourself. So it's a good start to that be selfish piece and get really clear on what you want. That's a great resource that I'm happy to share.
Love it. Yes. So if we take nothing away other than be selfish, although there were a lot of other gems that I hope we take away, but we'll start there. So we'll definitely start with the
Be
audit.
selfish about your ideal life, not selfish about what your ideal life looks like. Yes.
Yes. But I think, like you said, a lot of times women we can put ourselves last, and so it's a lot of
Yeah.
overgiving, a lot of doing the most, and so
Hmm.
like you said, selfish in building your dream life, which starts with a lot of times for us saying no to the things that are draining us.
I agree.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been such a great conversation.
It has. It has. I wish we had hours.
I know, right? I know there are so many other questions like Nadia, just stop talking.
Well, we're both here for all the questions that your listeners have. So
Yes.
love it.
Awesome. Thank you
Thanks
all for
again.
tuning in, and we'll see you again soon on another episode. Bye bye. That's a wrap on today's episode of Sales Culture Unfiltered. But the conversation doesn't end here. If something sparked your interest today, connect with me on LinkedIn or visit our website at thedoyenagency.com to explore how we're helping sales teams build cultures that last. And if you found this episode valuable, don't keep it to yourself. Hit subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow sales leader. See you next time.